So I'm going off topic a little bit. That's true. I am Keifer Hunniford. I am lazy. I cannot tolerate doing repetitive tasks over and over again. It drives me insane. I understand that we can pay people to do that kind of thing, and some people like that. We call them accountants. Some people can do repetitive tasks. It drives me insane. Integrations, ironically, are a balance of working out what to throw money at and what not to throw money at, because you can shoot yourself in the foot down the road. But I'm basically a lazy person. I automate everything. I had an iPhone 1 that woke up every night and ran Ruby scripts to pull music onto it in the middle of the night. So all that crazy stuff. So the topic is using Miva Connect to automate ERP CRM other workflows. I'm going to broaden this a little bit more because this is not a sales pitch about Miva Connect and our professional services. I want to just explain what I've learned over the years and over the lot of NetSuite work I've done about what it takes to make a successful integration and what the moving parts are. So I want to do a bit of an education here. But firstly, should you invest in automation? Absolutely yes. Anything that is complex, cumbersome, should be considered for automation. Anything that is losing you money should absolutely be automated. So, I mean, inventory, lack of inventory, loses money, creates complexity, breaks process. So anything that loses money should be automated. So yes, selectively, but only if you do it properly. Now, we are in a narrow window here in time when you can use AI in presentations as much as you want, even though it's really cheesy. So we're still in that kind of window of using AI graphics. There's a whole lot of resources. There you go. I don't know what I call this guy, but he's pretty cool. But only if you do it properly. So let's talk about doing it properly, because when we look at our onboarding, customers who don't make it, it's quite usual that it's because of an integration. They're maybe stuck on some old. They might be on Ecommerce and they've been integrating to something for years and it's all manual, and they've decided they want to move to a NetSuite or Epicor or something, and at the same time they should change their e-commerce platform. These things fall apart because of the quality of the integration. And if you Google integration nightmares, you will find a whole lot of data about where things go wrong. And really what I want to talk about here is how to avoid those pitfalls and some pro tips. Same with you guys with Sabina. I mean, I know that you get a customer and they're all excited and they have some integration and it's like pulling teeth. Nobody knows what the gotchas were before going into it, and it just becomes really complicated. So let's talk about some of these things. Let's talk about what the moving parts are of integration at a very high level, what options you have when it comes to solving these problems in terms of teams and tools. What I've learned is really necessary for success. We'll talk a little bit about where AI is going with this, because it's obviously going to be the next thing. I'll tell you where I think we are and where I think we're going to go. And then I'll talk through a case study, which of course is Rally House. Probably get sick of hearing about Rally House. But I'll tell you why that worked. Okay, so an integration. Let's consider we have a system on one side, a system on the other side. We have all this stuff in the middle. This is the hard bit. This is the easy bit. And sometimes that gets lost in translation when you talk to companies who provide integration services. But basically, you could roll your sleeves up and code the middle bit. This is scripts, this is an API, this is an API. Let's say that's Miva and that's NetSuite. You could code it, you could write code, people do that. JBugs are here in the room. JBugs used an iPaaS, which I'll talk about, and it just wasn't working, and they just threw it all away, got a really hot coder, coded the whole thing, and it works great. So you can code this, that's hard. iPaaS is integration platform as a service, so like the Celigos of the world. Zapier is kind of Zapier, is that what it's called? Zapier was the one that came along in the WordPress world, and there's 3,000 connectors. That's the promise. The problem with iPaaS is all they can tell you when they're marketing is that they have new ones of these. They say, we now have a Miva connector, we now have a NetSuite connector, we have a Zendesk connector. This is the hard bit, and that's not in their marketing. And that's really important to understand. It's like if you give somebody a tool doesn't make them a craftsman, right? Apps, I'm going to talk about a little bit more. Apps in the complex space, ERMs and CRPs, I'll talk about those right now. But in terms of actually making this happen, if you're a savvy person, if you are in any way competent at coding, there's no reason why, is that funny? If you're not an idiot, if you're in any way competent at coding, you could do something like upgrade, take inventories from here and update them over here, as long as you fall through the connected points. Like there are some really easy things that you can do, just rolling your own, even with imports and exports. Something like inventory can be easy, but of course there are gotchas. Orders are not easy. Customer records are not easy. But this is always an option if you have something like that. Going back to apps, our guide. If you take something like Epicor, which you can shape to work for your business, or NetSuite, and you take something like Miva that you can shape and work to your business, every time you do something non-standard on either one of these, you're exponentially making it more complex in the middle. So the app has to be 20 times more complex than the systems, and that's never the case. Anybody in this room or in the Miva community who tried to use FAR app to connect between Miva and NetSuite know exactly what I'm talking about. And then Oracle bought FAR app, and then Oracle just buys things for them to die. So nightmare scenario. This is why Miva, this is why we get tired in our sales process of, well, this thing has an app for that, this thing has an app for that. They're shit. So great, they have an app for it, but I know people on Shopify connected to NetSuite, and they're pulling their hair out because apps just don't do it. They're not flexible. Unless you want to just do inventory over here to over here, okay. Does the SKU already exist? No? Okay, it'll blow up, but we'll send you an email. Time-wise, good. Third-party integrators, there's two caveats here. We've got some really good people in this room, Miva developers, who are great. If you are going to hire somebody to integrate between A and B, make sure they are an expert in at least A or B. If they're not, move on and make them prove it. When I built Miva Connect NetSuite, it was a real challenge to become an expert on NetSuite, just to the point that I knew what I didn't know. Like, it took a long time. And a couple of clients to actually go, oh, wow. But third-party integrators, NetSuite integrators, people going to NetSuite, I don't know about Epicor. Like, you have an Epicor consultant who's helping you.
We have a team of them, yeah.
Yeah.
So depending on what facet of the software you're working on, you can get a team of consultants.
Yeah, and typically, if you have a team of consultants, they often will offer to do the integration, and they know one side, which is great. And if you go down a path with an integrator like that, like hook us up with, introduce us to Nick, introduce them to Nick, so that they know the differences between how Miva works and other things. So as long as a third-party integrator is even either an expert on the Epicor or an expert on Miva, great. If they're experts at both, even better. The Miva Connect team, so we have quite a lot of experience now with NetSuite. We are working with customers at Epicor and Microsoft Dynamics. And our approach is kind of to invest more than the project would cost to become the expert in that, so that we're actually walking the walk and talking the talk. I put hundreds of hours into building the NetSuite Miva Connect solution, so that I knew what we were doing before we signed up for the first. Okay, so some top tips. This is really, really, really important. Integrations. If you think of an integration as I'm going to go from QuickBooks to NetSuite, and then I'm going to do the integration, you're just going to have so much pain. Introduce your teams on both sides as early as possible, so they can make decisions about what a unique ID looks like over here, matching over here. Like it's so vitally important. It's so vitally important for those teams to talk early, because they know what the gotchas are. They know that certain things have to match up on both sides, or everything's hard. Like that in the middle can become so horrifically complex every time you want to pass anything to anywhere, because you just haven't thought advanced about how to hook these things up. This is so true, and this is also why integrations fail, when people think about it last, or when their consultant who's done a bunch of various integrations just say, yeah, we'll get your NetSuite instance up and running, then we'll bolt the integration on the end, and it just goes to hell. By definition, you are going to duplicate data across different systems when you do an integration. It's really important right at the start to sit down and say, okay, what's our source of truth? If I really want to know what the inventory is, where do I go? Is it in my ERP, or is it my e-commerce store, my sales, or what is my source of truth? What's my source of truth for the sales tax calculation, for the payments? What's my source of truth? Like, where do I go for, where do products, images start and live and die, and what's their life cycle? So it's really important. It's you as the business owner, if you work that out, you can help your integrators to really get a sense of what's important. So that's the vital step. Time, good. Super, super, super important. Integrations are they're like puppies, right? They're not just for Christmas. You do an integration, that's a 3 to 5 year commitment. If you decide you want to absolutely integrate everything the way things currently work, like complex and complete, that's complete. Complex and complete, that's great. But know that it's going to cost you, and it's going to cost you forever. Because every time you change something on either side, integrations can be really brittle. You just have to maintain it. It's just like another piece of software. It's like a third piece of software. It's really important. Basic and affordable, there are people unlike me who can sit all day and do just like copy, paste, copy, paste. I'd go insane. But it can sometimes be more affordable to have somebody do daily end-of-day batches of reporting and moving things across that could be done with an automation, but it's not cost justifiable in terms of the upfront effort and the downstream maintenance. So it's okay not to automate everything. It's okay, for example, let's say you're doing e-commerce to ERP system. If you add new products in the ERP system, it's okay for the only integration is to tell the e-commerce platform, hey, this exists, and this is the SKU, and this is the title, and it's inactive, and you can find it over here and go make it happen. And for somebody to have to live in the e-commerce platform and manage the actual content of that product, that's okay. It's not okay if things don't line up and you sell a product that doesn't exist in the ERP. So there are things that are okay, there are things that are not, and integration budgets can just like, they can blow up because it's complex. Find trusted partners, like with the Epicor. Please feel free to introduce them to Nick, because there are things on the Miva side that might be slightly different, and everybody has to know what they don't know. But even in terms of the general world, ERPs have born out of accounting programs. Mm-hmm. If you sell something in your e-commerce store and you collect sales tax and you collect it correctly, your ERP may not care. You tell your ERP what products have been sold, and it recalculates the sales tax, and there's nothing you can do about it. So even having to know that you have to have the same sales tax calculator or system on both systems, otherwise it just blows up. If you auth on the e-commerce store and then you capture it in an ERP, then you have to have the same payment gateway working across both of those and knowledge of that. You're passing tokens instead of data. If you do it the other way around, it depends where you refund. There are all of these things that you've really got to think through in details. All checkout stuff like sales tax, shipping, payments, you've got to think it all through in advance. All systems seem to deal with variants, colors, sizes slightly differently. Miva has our variants, NetSuite has matrices. You have to work out what your plan is here if you're using that kind of product. You really do up front. And your integrators have to get on the same page about how that works in terms of the ERP. I talk about ERPs more than CRMs, but they're more complex. Your ERP has to be able to tell Miva about that kind of variation, and then at the order level, when somebody buys a red small t-shirt, the ERP has to know which one of that is in its actual inventory. Even quantities. Like inventory is the absolute simplest, But if your ERP is storing units and you're selling boxes of 100, all of a sudden that machine and that thing in the middle becomes more complex. So while you're focused on this awesome efficiency, ease, productivity, inventories, all this awesome stuff, make sure you have people that you're talking to that can help you understand what you don't know and what the gotchas are. For Miva, our order workflows are a real asset for ERP integrations, where you can have an order go into a specific queue, and then the ERP can pull everything from that queue, and then when it says, hey, we got that, they can say, okay, take it out of that queue. As opposed to what a lot of systems do, which is just, give me all the orders since the last order date, which is much less reliable. And it allows ERPs to come back and say, hey, put this in a different queue because we're going to do a refund, or put this in a different queue because we're going to ship it delayed. All of that stuff is really, really cool for integrations in Miva. API performance, the biggest secret of Miva pushing data into Miva is the iterate clause in an API. So you can hit one API call can have tens, hundreds, even thousands of records all updating at the same time. And you get an array back of success or failures. Told you this was one place. There's no way we could have done a Lighthouse integration with this. There's days we do 2 million API calls, each of which might have 100 to 200, 300, 400 products. MJ said today, his stat was it would take 4 months for Shopify Plus to do 1 day of our traffic. It would take 34 years in Shopify with the rate limits to do 1 day of Lighthouse. And that's not just because of API calls, it's because of this iteration. So if you're working with a third party, most third-party integrators are thinking 1 hit, 1 record. It can be hundreds. You can update your entire inventory of thousands of things in minutes, which is an unknown secret. It's pretty flexible variants. Customer product, order, and customer fields, they really help. So I used to say they're hard. That used to be my starting point. Integrations are hard. They're not rocket science. They're certainly non-trivial, but when you get them right, they're really, really worth it. So AI, this is my favorite. I think AI is still about here with integrations because it's still making stuff up as it goes along. But I think the iPaaS industry is going to be radically interrupted by AI. Claude has a really cool base technology now where you can just write a little servlet that tells Claude what it needs to know and what it's allowed to know about your data. And then it's all kind of self-discovery. And you can start to just say, you can put a little data servlet on your products and your ERP and all your data. And then you can say, hey, Claude, with everything you know that we can do, right now it's reporting. With everything you know we can do based on these little servers that we've told you what you've permission to do, give me a report. That's going to start migrating now to, with everything we know you can do, what is the best way to hook up this to this to this and this and this? But even right now, if I was doing integrations right now by scripting, 80% of the code I would be writing would be by AI. The AI's ability to discover, just read UPS documents, just to read integration documents that are well written, and then you say, okay, write me the connector for UPS integration. It's really getting good. We'll see if it starts to count fingers better. Ironically, this took 10 attempts because AI is it's so scared of putting too many fingers on now. I actually had to eventually say, look, I'm trying to create a funny thing with too many fingers. Create a non-anatomically correct version of a man. So it's caught on. So it's getting there. It's getting there. Let's talk about Lighthouse a little bit. And I'll tell you, the second slide is more important. It's the process that we did that made it successful. But some of the complexities, somebody who's on NetSuite and is using Ecommerce has been conned into the idea that they can bolt an e-commerce experience into an accounting platform, which is horrible. But you get people who for years are creating processes around NetSuite and their e-commerce platform. So it's really hard to tell them, hey, all of this 100 employees you have working in this system every day, half of them are going to go and work in another admin tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. Rally House had years of spreadsheet-based process with buyers and sellers uploading into NetSuite, uploading images into NetSuite that were then exposed on the front end. So that put them in the realm of complex and complete. They don't go into Miva Merchant Admin hardly at all, and they don't need to. They create matrix products in NetSuite that automatically appear as variant products in Miva with all the bells and whistles, all the images, sometimes up to 20,000 new products a day. So they've currently got 9 million products in the database. About half of those are active, but they switch in and out all the time. Their performance demands are extreme. And thankfully, our API keep up. And we've actually built another queue system for just the fire hose of data. NetSuite's not very good at saying why a product has been updated. A Rally House product has 600 custom fields. So any update to any custom field triggers an update to Miva. So literally millions and millions and millions of updates a day on products, often the same products from a good reason. So it's really performant, but then their stores, when something is sold, the inventory, the actual shipment comes out of a store that has inventory. So of the 250 stores, every time somebody sells a product, the e-commerce store has to know because they are the fulfillment centers. So every time anything is sold in one of 250 stores, the inventory of that product across all stores is updated. Also, thousands of times a day. Because in the stores, that's linked into NetSuite through the point of sale system. Then this crazy thing here, when the whistle blows at the end of any number of events, like the Super Bowl, but much less significant games, there's relationships with the big manufacturers of merchandise, where various people have the rights to sell something. The stuff that the losing team has been prepared can never be public, or you get fined tens of thousands of dollars. If you try to sell a minute before the whistle blows, you get fined tens of thousands of dollars. So the minute a whistle blows at the end of hundreds of games every year, somebody at Rally House presses a button, and these products have to go live in the Miva Merchant store that were being completed up until 2 hours before that whistle blow. And they can't send marketing, they can't run TV ads, they can't send emails, they can't do anything until those are active. So this was another just crazy, not only is it heavy performance, it's really critical timing. So it was hard. We did it. So here's what was the secret to the success in this partnership. I was in the calls and I was the integration guy. I was in the call, the very first launch of the product discussion to build the Rally House site. It was integrations from day one. They were really willing to look at their own data and do a deep dive on their data so that they understood their data and simplified some of their processes to make it possible along the way. Incredibly close collaboration, like daily calls was how I woke up for 6 months. Very close collaboration between what we were developing in the front end, what I was doing with the integration in their NetSuite team, like incredibly close. And really realistic discussions about cost. Because at this complexity, you don't create this kind of springboard for success, which is what it's become, without spending money. They cleaned up some NetSuite stuff that without it just wouldn't have happened. And really this, I think one of the advantages of using us for Miva Connect is whatever we use, it's one less person you have to call. It's not your integration's done, have a nice life. We are part of the Rally House team now. We're constantly in contact. We're monitoring it. We get alerts if there's a problem. And there are problems. There's always problems with integrations. And we're constantly doing performance audits, making data improvements. And honestly, we're just, as part of the deal with Miva Connect is we're a partner with the success of the integration and not just the delivery of integration. That was 26 minutes. Thank you.